Hello, Alex. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks so much for having me, Elijah.
Beautiful. And thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. And you see, my man, oftentimes I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, Alex, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invested in yourself. And oftentimes, my man, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. See, some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, Alex, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, just recently, Alex, I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance. And immediately, I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did. And it wowed me. Because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it. Beautiful green leaves and healthy branches. And not just mangoes now, Alex, I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day. I was so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Alex that you are today, that alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing, your philosophies, your insight, the impact your work is having, and how you are offering your solutions. These stuffs are beautiful, my man. And just before I sent you that request, Alex, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Alex is doing. And not only me now, because, I don't want to be selfish, and even with the audience. And here we are today with the amazing Alex. So thank you so very much for doing that to yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, my man.
No, thank you so much, and thanks for sharing that story. I mean, the there's multiple lessons that I can kind of hear in that around um, how our perception changes as if we take a second look at what's going on in our life, and you're right, like um, transmuting kind of pain in our experiences can translate into so much growth. And what I hope to kind of share with the book that I wrote was to use kind of my learnings to help out men and women going through kind of family law courts and getting through that system too. I call it winning your divorce, but winning your divorce, we talk about it at the end, means ending up with the life that you want or that's best for your children and your family at the end of the day.
Exactly, my man. So, you see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Alex, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And you see, not just knowledge now, but the application of it. And you see, my man, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness, ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the incredible Alex on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, my man, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got a lot of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, my man, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So, for that reason, Alex, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Alex got here. Then, afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Alex, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm Alex Dane, and I wrote a book on called "Winning Your Divorce: A Tactical Guide to uh, Custody Battles and Divorce Court." Um, what I found was similar to your story. In I ended up at a point where I was a bit naive about the whole process, and when I began to separate from the relationship, I found quickly that access to my child was separated from me, not for any real reason, but just I think it was a strategic move in order to kind of position my ex a bit better. And so at that moment, if you're talking about information in light and dark, I had the least amount of information about the whole process, and my life was probably at one of the darkest points of it. And I was in a way, at my weakest. My mind was kind of confused because of the emotionality of all of it. But I had to make these huge decisions that affect not just my life, but my family's life and my future, and and my children. And I didn't have the knowledge that I needed to have. And so you have lawyers and you have, professionals that you can talk to, but the information that they give you is always filtered through, their professions and their needs and that. So what I wanted to do was give a handbook for both for dads, but for parents as well. The knowledge that I wish that I had at that time in order to be strategic through the whole process.
Wow. And that's so thoughtful of you. And the fact that you are not just keeping the solution to yourself, but you're spreading it out there. That's a beautiful one. And I want you to talk to us more about your book. Okay. How was the writing process like? How long did it take you to finish writing it? And how did you come about the title?
Yeah, so I mean, the writing process, it actually, uh, when I was finished, I kind of knew that I wanted to put down my learnings and give it back out. I've always kind of been that way. Um, I work in another profession, in a healthcare profession, and so I've done some kind of writing in there in a different area. But a lot of it, the words kind of flowed out. Like I made a framework, and I knew the general ideas I wanted to write, but a lot of it came out quickly because just writing, my experiences and lessons I learned, and it's very interesting though, especially going through the editing process or having kind of people test read the book, call them beta readers. Um, I found that a learning process too, for how each paragraph, you could have kind of 10 different points of view of what's going on, and being able to kind of figure out how I communicate. It gave me a lot of deeper learning into how I communicate out, but as well how to put words out there and see what kind of perception to make sure that the message that I wanted to send was getting out loud and clear.
Awesome. And that's a smart one. I love it. So let us talk about family court. All right. So why isn't family court fair? And how can parents still win?
Yeah, and when I say it's unfair, it's not just unfair. It wasn't just unfair to me. It's unfair to kind of everyone involved. Because once you get involved in a system like that, the system kind of takes over. And so very early on, I had a choice to either kind of be consumed by the unfairness of the process, or understand how and why it was unfair. A lot of times in family court, they start talking about what's in the best interest of the child. And I remember asking, like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And trying to figure it out. And I could tell everyone had a different interpretation of it. And what I eventually realized, because I'd worked in other systems, I'm like, oh, this is just another system. What's happening is what they want is to reduce back to the mean. They want those unstill waters of the parents fighting to become still, so that people kind of stop going to court again. And what in the best interest of the child actually meant, which I don't think a lawyer or a judge would tell you, was having kind of a quick solution that didn't involve the courts as much in the end, that was reasonable. It definitely has to be reasonable, but was kind of a path of least resistance for the system. And once I understood that, then I could see a lot more how the arguments, being made on either side could get towards that quicker. So the way that it's unfair is when you get in there, it's I would say that it's not necessarily in the best interest of the child, maybe 50-50, but it's definitely in the best interest of the court not having to deal with kind of the issue at hand, the custody issue.
Wow. Wow. I got that. I got that. So what about this one? How can parents protect their parenting time during chaos?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to that. You definitely want to uh, be reasonable. You need to manage your relationships with the court, with your other parent, and with your lawyer as well as the other lawyer, and the perception of how you're coming off through the process. Because if you're not managing those relationships, they're going to be managing you. And then I have a whole suite of kind of tips and tricks around communication, as well as building a network around just trying to give the information that your lawyer won't or can't really give you in order to get through that process. But you start managing that and have a really good internal emotional game, then I think you'll make it through a lot smoother.
Okay, that's a smart one. Now I see why you're so good at what you do. All right. So let's talk about divorce tactics. Okay. So what divorce tactics actually work?
Yeah, so a lot of it you'll end up kind of having definitely develop a strategy for the whole process. Think about the perception that you're going to put out there. Have reasonable kind of plan for how parenting should work out. Manage those relationships, and then a lot of it ends up being kind of a game of words. So ensuring that your email game is strong, which we have a lot of tips around that, and coming up with a strategy with your lawyer. We have a little section on if you don't have a lawyer, how to that there are kind of ways to self-represent, and then making sure that you have enough of the resources, both emotionally, financially, as well as time-wise, in order to kind of begin this fight, because it can be the fight of your life.
That's so true. It can be the fight of one's life. Okay, so you mentioned emotional intelligence, all right? So how can parents use emotional intelligence during chaos?
Yeah. So I mean, at the beginning of the process, there's so many kind of emotions that were going on for me, and I kept kind of resetting, because I'm not someone that kind of stays angry very long. If I get angry, you kind of get these affidavits getting sent to you that it sounds like they're describing someone else, and I kept kind of expecting more of a collaborative process, but I had to kind of get a better relationship with some of the tougher emotions that we typically try to avoid. And so I realized eventually that I needed to kind of keep my anger going through the process, because that was the fuel when everything would feel hopeless or like there was no kind of path forward. I need that anger to keep my feet moving forward. But you also have to make sure that anger doesn't turn into rage, because I could see in other people's cases that as soon as your emotions got out of control, you're going to be on really shaky ground with the judge, with your own lawyer, and with another lawyer as well. When you're kind of in this process, you're building a case and you feel like you're going to lose everything, then anxiety becomes quite big. But instead of fighting anxiety, understanding that anxiety, if it's harnessed a little bit, can keep you very sharp. And I talk a lot about that. And then the grief. So there was a time period where my access to my son was reduced quite a bit. And so there was a whole grief process about that. But as long as I took the time to give grief the attention that it needed so that it wasn't overwhelming. I mean, there's going to be periods where it's overwhelming, and that's okay. What I realized was when it came time to where anxiety wasn't going to be helpful, then the grief actually helped kind of reduce the anxiety. So your anger can be your fuel. You got to keep it going. You got to let it go eventually. You got to let all this go eventually. But this is a time in life where you need to become a master with these very difficult emotions.
Becoming master with these very difficult emotions. And the part you mentioned that ensure that your anger doesn't turn into rage. Wow, these are some very smart techniques, and very important at the same time. Okay, so what about this one? Folks who they say, "Hey Alex, how do you handle a co-parent who lies or manipulates?" What would your response be?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways to kind of manage with this, but I'll give you the simple ones off the start, which is when that email comes, when that text message comes, or that call, don't react. Give yourself 24 hours. What I can give you a very practical one. So I give myself 24 hours on that, longer for an affidavit before I even start to respond, because my initial reaction is just purely emotion. And then once, you kind of have that thought process back even a little bit, even if the emotions aren't perfect, but they're definitely kind of better, then for emails and that, run it by someone else, run it through ChatGPT before you send it, analyze it both ways. A helpful one is kind of using BIF statements because they tend to diffuse the situation if you're in a high conflict situation. And you can just type in, "Hey, ChatGPT, analyze this email as a BIF statement and rewrite it for me." Make sure you read it before you send it out, because sometimes there'll be hallucinations in there that can send out something pretty crazy. But kind of realizing that game, then a lot of the power of the high conflict situation starts to disappear. And there's the more high conflict person has less control over the whole situation.
I got that as well, and thank you so very much. That was a beautiful one. So to bring this to an end, my man, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those folks who would like to reach out to you, learn more about the wonderful stuff you're doing, or make a purchase of your wonderful books, how can that be possible?
Yeah. If you're at that point, you're out there right now where it feels hopeless, there's kind of no path forward, or it's just difficult and overwhelming. There's millions of other people who are kind of in that boat right now. It felt absolutely hopeless, but I kept putting one foot in front of the other, and examining the process and the strategy. Tap into this book, tap into your network, tap into coaches or dads or moms groups, tap into your family. You need both those people that will tell you kind of straight truth, but you also need those people that will support you to get through it. And feel free to reach out to me. The easiest way is to connect on the Substack. It's howtowinyourdivorce.substack.com. And check out the book. It's coming out soon, pre-sales in October, howtowinyourdivorce.com. And we're still early enough that if you want to communicate with me, you'll be directly communicating with me through the Substack. And I'd love to hear what's going on for you, how to help you get through this.
Beautiful, beautiful. I tell you, because your solution is really, really needed so very much. So thank you so very much for all that you're doing, Alex. That's going to be the end of the show. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this wonderful stuff with us, my man. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elijah.
Okay, that was